Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Jaya Jaya Radha Jaya Kunja Bihari Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Brihvajakacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Brihvajakacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam in its, hold on, I'm on a different page here, 5th canto, chapter 13, further talks between King Rahugana and Jadabharat. Text number 22, 22. Nahyadbhutam tvach charanabjarenubhir hetam haso bhaktir adhoksha jaymala mahurtikadyasya samagamach chame dustarko mulo pahato viveka Nahyadbhutam tvach charanabjarenubhir hetam haso bhaktir adhoksha jaymala mahurtikadyasya samagamach chame Dustarko mulo pahato viveka Nahyadbhutam tvach charanabjarenubhir hetam haso bhaktir adhoksha malam Mohurtikadyasya samagamach chame Dustarka mulo pahato viveka. Word for word translation says, not he, certainly, adbhutam, wonderful. Tat charana abjarenubhi is really nice. The dust of your 2 lotus feet. Charana abjarenu. We all know the song Bajahut. No, what's the one? What is the one? Charnarenu. Slipping my mind now. Charnarenu, the dust of the lotus feet, are wonderful. Adbhutam. Hata amhasaha, who am completely freed from the reactions of sinful life. Bhaktihi, love and devotion. Adhokshaje, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the capture of experimental knowledge. Amala, completely freed from all material contamination. Mohurtikat, momentary. Yasya, of whom. Samagamat, by the visit and association. Cha, also. Me, my. Tustarka, of false arguments. Mulaha, the root. Apahataha, completely vanquished. Avivekaha, not discriminating. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is not at all wonderful that simply by being covered by the dust of your lotus feet, one immediately attains the platform of pure devotional service to Adhokshaja, which is not available even to great demigods like Brahma. By associating with you just for a moment, I am now freed from all argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination, which are the roots of entanglement in the material world. Now I am free from all these problems. Purport. Association with pure devotees certainly frees one from the material clutches. This is certainly true of King Rahugana's association with Jata. King Rahugana was immediately freed from the misgivings of material association. The arguments offered by pure devotees to their disciples are so convincing that even a dull-headed disciple is immediately enlightened with spiritual knowledge. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakayam Chakshunun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. That's the meaning of the verse. Om Jnana Timarandasya is basically this verse in purport. Born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual masters open my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So it's relevant. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Karamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Maharaj Rahugana says, it is not at all wonderful, which is Bhagavatam speak for, it is very wonderful. This comes up a lot, actually. Aho bhatta svapachotogar Aho Bhattasvapachotogariyan Yajjivagre Vartate Nama Tubhyam. It's wonderful, it's incredible, it's marvelous. It's really saying the same thing. Adbhuta. Simply by being covered by the dust of your lotus feet, one immediately attains the platform of pure devotional service to Adhokshaja, which is not available even to great demigods like Brahma. So he's speaking to his spiritual master, Jad Bharat, who's no longer Jada, and saying that receiving the mercy of the dust of your lotus feet, one immediately attains the platform of pure devotional service to Adhokshaja, which is not available even to great demigods like Brahma. By associating with you just for a moment, I'm now freed from all argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination, which are the roots of entanglement in the material world. Now I'm free from all these problems. So this is the symptom of the effective relationship with the spiritual master. An effective relationship with the spiritual master means freed from all kinds of arguments, speculations in the head, free from the false prestige of ego, which really blinds our ability to see the truth anyway. Or the lack of discrimination, which is like a non-effort to try to understand what is the truth. Spiritual master frees us from all these things. And if that relationship is effective, then we know confidently Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and I'm his eternal servant. And this is what Rahugana is expressing now. It's just like a momentary association with the dust of your lotus feet, meaning I've been blessed by you. Your kindness to me. I don't think that there was any part where Jad Bharat actually placed his feet upon Maharaj Rahugana, although that can also happen and be magical. But it's referring to how he's received the mercy of Jad Bharat. And the mercy of Jad Bharat is not necessarily a magical thing. I mean, part of it is magical, part of it is practical. And that's what I'd like to try to discuss today. Part of it is magical. It's by the grace of Krishna that we become Krishna conscious. The Lord bestows his mercy upon someone. He might do that because a devotee has favored them. He might do that because of some good fortune. He brings one to the level of devotional service. We don't have any entry into bhakti without the Lord's permission, the permission of his energies. So a devotee who bestows their blessing upon another person sort of coerces the Lord to also give that mercy. We read about that in so many different pastimes in Bhagavatam, of course, like how the Lord favors Manigriva and Manigriva and what's his name? My good friend in New Zealand, Nalakuvara, excuse me. Thank you. How he favors Manigriva and Nalakuvara because of just that Narada Muni wanted to show some mercy to them. They were just drunkards and womanizers, and even though they came from a good family, being sons of Kuvera, but Narada Muni just wanted them to receive the favor, the mercy of the Lord. And so Krishna's like, well, all right, then I will. He actually said, I have nothing to do with these rich boys, these rich kids. I've got nothing to do with them. But Narada Muni, he wants that I bestow some mercy upon them. So that's for that reason only. Krishna propped up the wooden grinding mortar in between those two huge Arjuna trees and just plop, pulled them down. Soon we'll be praying for the same punishment or mercy. Just remember, as we're singing the Damodarashtakam, that we say, may I please also have this mercy. We pray to the Lord in the same way, please bestow your mercy upon me. Then we're asking for that sort of punishment, like Nalakuvara and Manigriva. Keep that in mind. This is how a person gets the mercy of the Lord. It's by the grace of a devotee. But the devotees give mercy to so many people. And this is the real kicker here. This is the real crux of the issue. What is it that causes a person to become fully Krishna conscious? What happens there? Like, what is the magic element that makes that happen? Something for us to contemplate, because for most of us, it happened to us. Just looking around the digital room here, most of us weren't really born into this. And even if you were born into it, still you have to become Krishna conscious. Can't be forced. So what is it that happens whereby a person who is formerly in ignorance, in Maya, in illusion, and then they become devoted to Krishna? They realize their svarupa, nitya siddha, Krishna prema sadhya kavanoi, that the love of Krishna is there in their heart. And that's their eternal perfection. What happens? How is that possible? The devotees are very generous, and we recognize that it's the mercy of the devotees that makes all the difference. And yet the devotees are giving mercy to a lot of people. I mean, a lot. In the form of the holy names of Krishna, in the form of prasadam, in the form of Srila Prabhupada's books, their time and their energy. The devotees give out a lot of mercy. Not everybody's becoming a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. We can say all sorts of things to try to justify that, well, now it's inevitable. It's just, maybe it'll be 20 lifetimes from now. And there might be some truth to that, but it's a little hard for us to tell if that's the way, except that we've heard. There is another element, though, and that's what's being implied by Srila Prabhupada in this purport, and by Maharaj Rahugana, that there is simply the logical, rational explanation given by great devotees who take the time and energy to make that logical argument, so that a person who's fortunate and intelligent can very easily receive that mercy coming through the devotee and ultimately from Krishna. It does make a difference. It's not just agyata sukriti. That, well, this person was like tricked into some sort of service, and so therefore now they'll become a devotee. And we used to have this method at the Gauri Yoga in New Zealand, the Bhakti Lounge, before it was called Bhakti Lounge. If there was a new person who walked in the door, just immediately ask them to do some sort of thing, like, oh, hey, welcome. Could you just bring me that chair over there? It's like, we thought, like, we'll trick them into just a tiny little bit of service, and that's going to make them more qualified. Maybe in one sense, it does make them more qualified, but not nearly as much as just taking the time and the energy to become qualified and concerned enough to make logical arguments such that, as Maharaj Rahugan is saying here, we're freed from argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination. Prabhupada says the arguments offered by pure devotees to their disciples are so convincing that even a dull-headed disciple is immediately enlightened with spiritual knowledge. We cannot underestimate the significance of that and just assume that, well, I kind of like forced a book onto them, so now it just has to happen. Or, I tricked them into eating some prasadam. Actually, our spiritual master, His Deva Mrita Swami, said that if someone takes prasadam, they get a human birth in their next life, but that's only if they know that it's prasadam. It's not just like we can trick someone into progressing spiritually against their will. That's not how it works. Even Krishna doesn't do that against someone's will. We will them to receive the mercy coming through parampara with very logical, sound argumentation. It must be there. I shouldn't say must be there, but that's what really, really makes the more people become Krishna conscious. So Srila Prabhupada, that's why he put so much time and energy into producing his book so authoritatively. With all appeal to logic and argument and reasonable, sound explanation. He doesn't just rest on his laurels or enjoy some sort of supernatural authority by saying, I'm the Jagat Guru and the Kali Yuga Guru, and so you just have to listen to everything that I say. He took the time and energy to explain that you're not the body. How many times did Prabhupada say that you're not the body? How many times did he make explanations? How many times did he make analogies, logical arguments? How many times did he make it relevant to things that were going on in the world? That's how the mercy of the devotee manifests. If you really care about someone, you try to make it relevant for them. Try to explain in a way that will affect them so that they can receive the mercy. The mercy is the essential ingredient. There's no doubt about it. The devotee loves another soul, tries to connect them to Krishna, and Krishna is very affected by that. He can make magic happen. So that is the essential ingredient. But if we want a person to really receive the mercy, you can't trick them into receiving it unwillingly. Krishna is not about unwilling love. The arguments offered by pure devotees are so convincing. Even dull-headed people can get it. Many of us are a testament to that. Let's be honest here. We heard so many things from different religious groups or from spiritual people or something. We never heard the very clear argumentation of Srila Prabhupada. I can say for myself that I considered myself a spiritual seeker for as long as I can remember. Certainly I was younger than most of my friends when I got started in that sort of thing. And I read so many books and I thought I was very intellectual and sophisticated, reading all types of world philosophy and different types of spiritual traditions. But none of them were really satisfying the heart. Somehow Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita pregnant with logical argumentation, just had such a more powerful effect than anything else, which was full of speculation and ambiguity and sentiment. It didn't affect me. There was truth in those spiritual wisdoms as well. There's also truth in those spiritual traditions, the things I had studied before. But they were ambiguous. They were sentimental and often speculative. Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, in comparison, is airtight. It's airtight. There's no wiggle room for speculation. He makes such clear argument. He says it repeatedly so that we really get the point that you're not the body. And that's what has the biggest effect, so that we can receive the mercy of Krishna. A devotee who cares about others will take the time and energy to do that. We see that really for some of our best preachers of Krishna consciousness. They take the time and the energy to see what are the needs, interests, and concerns of the audience. How do I address their needs, interests, and concerns in presenting Krishna consciousness? How do I make an argument on behalf of Krishna that is sound, that is intelligent, that satisfies a person's inquisitiveness, so that when they hear the holy name of Krishna, when they take the prasadam and they associate with the devotees, they'll be convinced that there's value in this. Then they'll want the mercy. We're just trying to trick someone into the mercy with this agyata sukriti. It's not as effective. You can't make someone do it unwillingly. The sound argumentation makes a person willing to receive Krishna's mercy. So we shouldn't shy away from that. We should not shy away from that. The world is a argumentative place. There's conflict everywhere. And if we want to be pacifists intellectually, then we will also become irrelevant on the world stage. That's my personal opinion. This is Yashadeva Das's personal opinion. I want to be intellectual pacifists, meaning like, let's not, don't want to like challenge people too much or say something that will make them uncomfortable, just like have a real positive feeling or sentiment in your heart, but don't push. Then it will just become totally irrelevant, because everyone's being pushed in every direction by all sorts of ideology, both religious and secular. And we got to get in the ring and also push. And it's been my personal experience that the people that you challenge, the people who feel the most challenged and often express it, the ones who become Krishna conscious. That can be hard. It can be a little hard on us too, because we want to love people. We want to make them feel good. Sometimes we have a need that people like us. And so I just want to say the thing that's going to make somebody like me. And, maybe that's good preaching. As long as they like a devotee, then, again, that you got to Sukriti. There's some truth to that. Yes. But my personal experience, and I think probably some others can testify, is that those who are really challenged by the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, those who really are challenged by it, who argue with you, they become most convinced of Krishna consciousness. I've seen it time and time again, of the people whom somehow I've coerced with Krishna's help into becoming devotees. More often than not, is the people who really challenge, who really argue, who really fight back, who are really affected, and who therefore want to understand. It's the symptom, that it's the demonstration of their want to understand Krishna. So an expression of care and of love is to take the time to do that, just like Jad Bharat has done for Maharaj Ravugana. Instead of just saying, Krishna is God, now shut up because you're in Maya and you're a low-born, karmi, meat-eating fornicator. Just write off a whole category of people. It's just so easy for us to just write everybody off, like, forget it, they're all just nonsense and in Maya. No, if you care about another person, you take the time to communicate with them. Communicate means something in common, to see what are they interested in, what are they concerned with, what is their need. How can I explain Krishna consciousness in a way that satisfies their intelligence? That takes energy, because it's a lot easier to just repeat stuff verbatim. And we should, of course, always repeat, what we've learned from the spiritual master, but we're not supposed to just parrot it. Srila Prabhupada has encouraged us to share Krishna consciousness in our own language, in our own words, to explain what we've learned, but as we've realized it. And that takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of care to know, like, what is an interest of this person that I'm talking to? What are they concerned with? How can I help them to see logically that actually you're not this body, part and parcel of Krishna, and that this problem of yours is solved by getting over the bodily concept of life and realizing your eternal nature is part and parcel of Krishna. And not dismissing their problems, not dismissing their interests, but showing them that the actualization of their desire, what they want, what they need, that they hope to accomplish, and what problems they hope to solve is best accomplished by Krishna consciousness. So for that, we have to know the ins and outs of what a person is thinking, what they're doing, what they're concerned with, what is their problem, and to present Krishna consciousness in a way that's relevant to them. Then they're willing to receive. And from what I've understood from Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, Krishna likes those who are willing, not unwilling participants, nor people who are tricked. You cannot trick a person into being Krishna conscious, to manifesting, to desiring love of God. You can't trick someone into that. If a person hears arguments made by pure devotees that are so convincing, even dull-headed people can be immediately enlightened with spiritual knowledge. I'd like to read a little something from the Science of Self-Realization, because Srila Prabhupada is addressing this issue in one of the chapters there. It's a collection of essays. There's one called "A Devotee Always Feels Compassion." And Srila Prabhupada goes into a bit more detail about how it is that a person becomes Krishna conscious. He references Lord Chaitanya's famous statement, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasad Pai Bhakti Latapich. That a person is just so fortunate, Bhagyavana Jiva, they get the mercy of Guru and Krishna. That's what Maharaj Rahugan is talking about in this Bhagavatam verse. Bhagyavan Jiva. Usually we say Bhagavan for Krishna, for the Lord, maybe for Lord Shiva. But Bhagyavan Jiva, this soul is just so immensely fortunate that they get the mercy of Guru and Krishna. And then the seed of devotion is planted into their heart. Actually, we go through 8,400,000 species of life as we're doing this Brahmanda Brahmite, which means going all around this universe, born in this body, and then in that body, and this body, you go up and down and all around, just on and on and on it goes, like in the washing machine of material existence. But a greatly fortunate jiva gets out of that when they get the mercy of Guru and Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that out of all these numberless living entities who are traveling in the material world, one is fortunate, not everyone. If everyone were fortunate, they would all have taken to Krishna consciousness. It is being distributed freely everywhere, but why are people not taking it? Because they are unfortunate. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that only those who are fortunate take to this Krishna consciousness, and they get hopeful life, pleasant life, a life of knowledge. This is from Science of Self-Realization. One is fortunate. So Prabhupada says it's being distributed freely everywhere. Well, practically free. Nowadays, we got to charge a little bit. It's being distributed freely everywhere, but why are people not taking it? Because they are unfortunate. One's good fortune could be a result of their past life. We read this in Bhagavad Gita, that there are many lifetimes, some they come to Krishna consciousness because perhaps they've accrued some good karma, although it's not by good karma that one attains devotion, but good karma can give one a body whereby they have more intelligence, more opportunity, more freedom to pursue, genuine spiritual progress. So their good fortune could be the result of many, many lifetimes before they come to the point where they can just have Krishna handed to them and they take it. And many people, they're not there yet, even though it's being distributed freely to them. That good fortune is there, but they won't grab it. They're just not ready. Prabhupada says, because they are unfortunate. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that only those who are fortunate take to this Krishna consciousness. What is that good fortune? In the next paragraph, Prabhupada gives us some more. We know that good fortune can mean the results of their past lives, what knowledge that they've accrued or experienced, if they've learned as a result of their karmic activities, because the whole material world is meant for one's education, so that you learn not to be so selfish and exploitative and cause pain to others, and to recognize the authority of God. So if they've learned as a result of their past karma, then they can be considered fortunate. They can hear a logical argument about Krishna consciousness and take it. But then Prabhupada says in the next paragraph, it is the duty of a Vaishnava to go door to door to make the unfortunate people fortunate. A Vaishnava thinks, how can these people be delivered from their hellish life? That was Parikshit Maharaj's inquiry. Sir, he said, you have described that on account of one's sinful activities, one is put into a hellish condition of life or in a hellish planetary system. Now, what are the counter methods by which such a person can be saved? This is the question. When a Vaishnava comes, when God himself comes, or when God's son or his very confidential devotees come, their only mission is to save the sinful men who are suffering. They have knowledge of how to do this. So a person is fortunate as a result of their past lives, and some, they're just ready to be able to hear logical argument, hear the philosophy of bhakti, and become devoted to Krishna, to realize their nature as part and parcel of Krishna. And some are unfortunate, being too much possessed by the modes of ignorance and passion, having accrued so many sinful reactions for their activities, and the logical argumentation just cannot sit in their brain. So do we just write them all off? Do we just say, well, to hell with them, their own damn fault? No, Srila Prabhupada says here, a Vaishnava goes door to door to make the unfortunate people fortunate. The thinking, how can these people be delivered from their hellish life? What can I do about it? Even Maharaj Parikshit, he was asking, after the end of this 5th canto, we're going to read, pretty sure this inquiry is the beginning of the 6th canto, because Shukadeva Goswami just described all the hellish planets, and the first thing Maharaj Parikshit was thinking was, how do we save people from this? That's a Vaishnava. Vaishnava doesn't just think, well, to hell with them. They're just unfortunate. It's their own damn fault. Everybody's so sinful. They're eating cows. They're aborting babies. They're murdering each other. They're voting for the party that I disagree with. So to hell with all of them. No, Maharaj Parikshit's first inquiry is, what can we do about this? How do we save them from this hellish condition of life? Prabhupada says, this is the question. When a Vaishnava comes, when God himself comes, or God's son or his very confidential devotees come, their only mission is to save the sinful men who are suffering. They have knowledge of how to do this. We have knowledge of how to do this, every one of us, because Srila Prabhupada gave it all. He's given all the tools. Everything is there. You have to care enough to try to put it in front of somebody, to tell them. You have to care enough even to challenge them. And not be so worried about, they're going to like everything that I'm saying. Are they going to like me? That's the most important thing, that they like me. No, the most important thing is that they remember they're part and parcel of Krishna. For that, sometimes we have to make very challenging statements, challenging arguments, just like Jad Bharat did to Maharaj Rahugana. He wasn't just all sweet, sugar-coated. He was pointing out, you're in Maya, you're an illusion. But with care, with mercy. That's why Maharaj Rahugana is feeling it now. He says, I've received your mercy. This is even better than what Brahma gets. So, Vaishnava cares for the suffering condition of others. Doesn't just justify it or write it off or be inimical towards them. There's too much of that going around these days. Oh, these people are my enemy. They're all wrong. Just like the nationalism and the division and the hatred is just like increasing day by day in this Kali Yuga. That's not Vaishnava. That's not Vaishnava. Prabhupada says here, Vaishnava is thinking, how do I help them? What can be done about it? We feel that care. If we recognize that someone has cared for us, someone did that for me, then we will care for others and do whatever we can to try to help. That means giving someone Srila Prabhupada's books and saying, the wisdom in this book is so amazing. It's affected me in such a powerful way. And I'd really love for you to read it also. Or we can share the holy names with someone and say, I've been chanting this mantra. They're powerful names of God. And what it's done in my life is just amazing. And because I love you, I want you to have it too. It's a gift. Then people are affected by that. They're taken aback by that. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. But we have to really care. We have to really care. And we have to take the time to explain, to make the logical arguments that Prabhupada's saying in this purport, to make arguments so convincing that even dull-headed people can be immediately enlightened with spiritual knowledge. We have the knowledge how to do this. But do we have the heart for it? Do we really care? Or do we like being better than others or justifying some sort of difference from them? Well, I'm not like them. I'm not in Maya. Srila Prabhupada did it for us. That should be enough of a motivation for all of us to do it for others. Find some way to reach out to others because it is so desperately needed right now. I mean, the times today are just a lot worse than even when Srila Prabhupada came in terms of like the suffering that's going on individually and collectively in a spiritual sense. People are more confused than ever. People are more frustrated than ever, angrier than ever. And they need the mercy of the devotees more than ever. Srila Prabhupada did it for us. So we should find a way to do it for others as well. And that includes making very logical argument, relevant, poignant, and in line with the needs and interests and concerns of the people that we're talking to. And that takes some serious effort, but it's totally worth it. And it's very effective. And frankly, there's nothing better to do. Krishna. I apologize for getting a little worked up. It's just a very relevant verse purport for today, especially since some of us are celebrating our spiritual masters Vyasa Puja Day. We'll be celebrating tomorrow. And so I've been having a lot of this on my mind recently. So I apologize for getting a little worked up. But in summary, this verse and this purport is kind of explaining what is the process by which a person is convinced of Krishna consciousness. It is, of course, the mercy of the devotee, but it's not just some sort of trickery by a Gyata Sukriti. It's really that a devotee is kind enough to try to explain, to really care about someone enough to explain Krishna consciousness with all sorts of logical arguments so that even a dull-headed person can get it, oh yeah, I'm really not this body. And that's how we make them fortunate. Some people are fortunate and they can just take it up very quickly, but those people are rare. But even those who are unfortunate, we should care enough to make them fortunate by giving time and energy to try to explain and to share our own experience from the heart. And that can make a person very fortunate very, very quickly. It is magic. It is bhakti magic. And it never gets old. So thank you very much for listening. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. There's a few minutes before that hook comes and takes me off stage. So would any devotees like to comment or add or subtract?
Thank you for...
Or multiply. Haribol, Sarvat Mapubu.
Yeah, that was very nice pep talk, how to go about our life without, if we feel guilty of any kind. I think preaching is a solution. I have a question. How come Lord Brahma, being defined as the most intelligent being in all creation, doesn't get it? Lord Brahma is a devotee, and at least this one. And how come this is not available even to Lord Brahma? Why? Why is not available? How come? What did he do?
Lord Brahma, yes, thank you for a very interesting and somewhat esoteric question, because of course we do know that the Brahma of this universe is a devotee. He saw the Lord. He was advised by the Lord how to create the universe. And yet, one of our most favorite Leelas, of course, is described in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that even he, because he's so intelligent, was kind of like, is this really Krishna? This is my Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he saw, Krishna sharing food with the cowherd boys and wrestling and sometimes losing in the wrestling match. And, they're making fart jokes with their armpits. And so Brahma's like, come on. And of course, as we know from the 13th chapter of the 10th canto, that he tested the Lord by kidnapping the cowherd boys and the calves. And Krishna's like, I got to put this guy in his place. Anyway, in the next chapter 14 of the 10th canto, Lord Brahma, he reveals what happened. Why is it that even I am so confused by this? And he says it's not just a matter of intelligence. You have to receive the mercy. And even if we know Krishna, we know Krishna, but we can forget. We can be covered over by Maya again. We can be in illusion again. And that's exactly what happened to Brahma. So if it can happen to Brahma, it can happen to us. But then eventually, after realizing that this Krishna in Vrindavan, this cowherd boy who makes, fart sounds with his armpits, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he made these amazing prayers. And he said the famous verse, Atapite Deva Padam Bhuja Dvaya Prasada Leshana Grahita Evahi. What is that verse? Atapite Deva. Hold on. 29? Yeah. 10, 14, 29. Atapite Deva Padam Bhuja Dvaya Prasada Leshanu Grahita Eva. He's almost saying the exact same thing as Maharaj Rahugana. Prasada Lesha Anugrahita Evahi Janati Tadvam Bhagavan Mahimno Nachanya Eko Pichiram Vichinvan. He says, my Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand your greatness, the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many, many years. Even a person expert in the Vedas, they cannot know the Lord without prasada lesha anugrahita, the parambuja dvaya, a little tiny little shred of dust from the lotus feet of the Lord. So you're saying, Brahma is so intelligent. Why is he not receiving the mercy? And it's not just a function of intelligence. We can make logical, intelligent argumentation to people, but also they have to receive the mercy of Krishna. It's just that when we try to make the time and energy to explain Krishna consciousness to someone, then Krishna is inclined to give that person their mercy. But it's not just a function of intelligence. Or as at least as Lord Brahma himself says, prasada lesha anugrahita. That's the prasada. It's the mercy of the Lord. So that's the magic of Krishna consciousness, or preaching Krishna consciousness. We make all sorts of incredible argumentation. We have such a dearth of wisdom to share with someone, but there's also just the Krishna factor, Krishna's mercy. It's like we're like the conduit, and Krishna is the energy. So we got to set up that conduit by giving someone a book, opening the book with them, reading the book with them. I only became finally interested in Krishna consciousness when the Mataji who gave me the Bhagavad Gita, she was always asking, have you read it? Have you read it? And I was like, no, I was just going to the center to eat prasadam and to flirt with the girls, because I had all these girls and they were really friendly, a little too friendly. And I was never reading the book. And she finally just grabbed me, put me down on these stairs, sat me down and said, we're going to read it right now. She opened it page 1. It just started going. We went to 20, 30 pages. She said, now continue. Because I was this dull-headed person who just didn't get it. So both things are there. In the famous words of our dear Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu, and both things are there. You have the intelligence to understand logically, but also the prasada, the mercy of the Lord. I hope that's a satisfying answer. This is very esoteric, Sarvama Prabhu, about Lord Brahma's relationship with Krishna, and I don't fully understand. That's why I'm just trying to quote him himself. Maybe you have some more you'd like to add about that, something that you're implying. No? Thumbs up. Okay. Krishna consciousness. Dear Tarika Prabhu, I see your digital hand raised. Would you like to add something?
I think so. Trying to gather my thoughts here. I feel like I'm a little confused by some of your statements, because on the one hand, you're talking about the importance of logical arguments, and of course, that's important. And then on the other hand, you're saying it's not by trickery or agyata sukriti.
Yes.
And yet you say that one has to be fortunate. Otherwise, even sound arguments won't necessarily make sense. So my understanding, based upon the words of Srila Prabhupada, is that good fortune that's agyata sukriti. That comes by agyata sukriti. It is by agyata sukriti that one becomes fortunate, and that by that good fortune, then it becomes easy to understand Krishna consciousness. And so, and Srila Prabhupada explained this to us so many times and instructed us specifically that we should try to engage people as far as possible in Agyata Sukriti, because they are dull-headed, they're covered over, they are not going to be able to understand your philosophical talks. You can talk all the philosophy you want to them, and they won't even have the patience to hear it, and nor will they have the capacity to understand it. And so he instructed us that, get them to honor some prasad. Let them appreciate the taste of prasad. By that appreciation, simply by thinking, oh, this is very nice, they'll make advancement in Krishna consciousness, and they'll be ready for the next step. Show them a book, let them, and he actually gave us the specific instructions when you're distributing a book. Put it in their hands, let them make physical contact with it. They'll make advancement just by touching the book. Open the pages, let them see the illustrations and appreciate the beauty of the illustrations. Read a few lines to them, or have them read the lines to you. And by some means or other, engage them in doing a little something. Because, all these activities are, it's devotional service. They may have no faith, they may have no understanding, but devotional service acts nonetheless. And we understand from Krishna that it is only devotional service that he can be understood. So, yeah, we can try to explain things logically, and if they hear, that's also devotional service, and that will also qualify them to understand. But it's sometimes the only hope for an individual is that you try to pre-qualify them for a future opportunity. And Srila Prabhupada himself did this all the time. It was his firm policy that, anybody who came, they must get some prasad. Never let anyone leave without getting some prasad. Everyone has to get a little prasad. Try to make sure that they actually eat it. Have them, eat it immediately in their presence. He gave us all kinds of instructions of how to engage people somehow a little bit in doing some little insignificant thing, with the understanding that they may not take to Krishna consciousness now, but that this will act sooner or later. That there will be some result, that devotional service never goes in vain. That even the slightest hint of devotional service will lead to more devotional service at some point or other. He stressed this very much because for so many people, you spoke a lot about how we should not write people off, and Srila Prabhupada would never write anybody off. But he understood that some people are they're not going to become devotees right away. It's going to take them some time. So you give them a start, engage them somehow or other a little bit in doing something. And it may take many years, it may take lifetimes, but at some point or other, they'll get another chance and they'll progress a little bit further. Eventually, they'll be able to understand and take fully the Krishna consciousness. There's
I understand your point, Prabhu. I wonder if I may suggest or give some reply.
Go for it.
Is it devotional service if a person doesn't know that they're doing devotional service? We can say like, oh, well, we gave them prasadam. I mean, I heard from my spiritual master, we talk about the benefits of someone taking prasadam, but if they don't know that it's prasadam, they don't know that it's offered to Krishna. Like, how can it be devotional service if they know nothing about Krishna? Well, where's the devotion? And, you know, this argument that, you know, this Agyata Sukriti is how people become fortunate. And here Prabhupada, even in the 70s, is saying it's being distributed freely everywhere. We'll just speak of the several decades after that. You know, why has that not been effective in spreading Krishna consciousness? I think that Agyata Sukriti has been a little bit exaggerated in our community, and we think that it's more powerful than it really is. I think what makes a person fortunate, even if they're dull-headed, even if they're unfortunate because of their past sinful activities, is just that a devotee really cares about them. It's not a matter of, you know, did they get prasadam or did they get the book? It's a matter of, does the devotee really care? Like really, really concerned. And that's how they get the mercy. That's how they get the mercy of Krishna. That's how they become fortunate. We can be distributing lots and lots of stuff and not really caring about people. And apparently, I wasn't around. I kind of just came at the end of that period of ISKCON. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of devotees who did care, but of course, you know, there was a period where there's a lot of just money making, selling paintings and stuff. I mean, is that an expression of care? For, you know, could be. I'm not trying to judge every individual. There's a lot of Agyata Sukriti, but not a lot of persons became fortunate. I think what makes a person fortunate is when the devotee really, really cares for the suffering condition of living entities, like we're hearing about Maharaj Parikshit. He's inquiring, how can people be saved from hellish life? Not just like, how can we trick the masses? It's my personal opinion. If you could show me a statement where, you know, Prabhupada's saying explicitly, Agyata Sukriti is how Krishna consciousness is going to spread, because I don't see that. I see always a reference to the mercy of the devotee. And when we hear that being said, like in this case of Maharaj Rahugana, he's saying, I've received your mercy, Jad Bharat. And what is that mercy? Well, that was the previous several chapters. It was a lot of talking. There's a lot of time being taken on the part of Jad Bharat to explain Krishna consciousness to him, not just like, well, I tricked you into saying Hari Bol or something. I think mercy means that a devotee really cares about someone who's suffering and will do anything to try to connect them to Krishna.
Well, Prabhu, you have your opinion.
I do, yes.
Opinions, of course.
Everybody's got one.
You can say lots of things about opinion. But Srila Prabhupada's opinion, which I heard directly from his lotus lips innumerable times. The importance.
I'm asking if you have reference where he says explicitly, Agyata Sukriti,
well,
you know, it's going to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world.
Let me say this. Srila Prabhupada spoke constantly, all day long. If there was anyone present, Srila Prabhupada was always speaking about something. The periods of time during which his words were recorded are minuscule compared to all that he spoke. There is a very great deal that Srila Prabhupada's disciples heard from him directly that you won't necessarily find recorded. These things are also recorded. I'm not saying that they're not recorded, but I'm talking about what I have personally heard from Srila Prabhupada directly. I heard lots of things from Srila Prabhupada directly. There was no recorder present at the time. No one was writing it down. Srila Prabhupada spoke words to me. Should I discount them as being somehow or other inconsequential because they're not recorded somewhere?
No.
He's my spiritual master. He spoke to me. He gave instruction. Is the written word necessarily more valuable than the spoken word?
I think yes. In answer to that question, and it's not me alone who thinks that, I agree with the opinion of Jayadvaita Swami, who did write about this subject, that yes, what Prabhupada put into his books is relevant for all people in all times. What he spoke in lectures, you know, might have been relevant to some that particular place. He's all over the world. And what he might have said in individual conversation could have been Jai Shri Shivada Damodar, relevant to an individual. And I don't think that everything that he said is relevant to everyone everywhere, but that the books are the highest authority. And all I know is the statements of the books. And I don't see a lot of evidence in Srimad Bhagavatam whereby a person becomes Krishna conscious by agyata sukriti. It's usually a devotee spending a lot of time and energy to give them that mercy and not just some trickery. So it does seem to me like, yes, that is more authoritative, because what's in the books is what Srila Prabhupada is written for everyone.
The hierarchy of authority, when we speak about the books versus letters versus room conversations, or words spoken from the Vyasa-san, and words spoken from the Vyasa-san, by the way, are that's the same as what's written in the books, same hierarchical level of authority, it's highest level of authority. It doesn't necessarily mean that because Srila Prabhupada is speaking and it's not written in his book, that it is necessarily of a lower level of authority. He may be speaking something which is of the highest level of authority. Consider that at one point in time, historically, none of the words of the spiritual master were written. Everything was spoken. All transcendental knowledge was conveyed through oral reception. It was only with the onset of Kali Yuga that there was a necessity to write things down, and Srila Vyasadeva began to write things down. Prior to that, everything was only spoken. The disciples simply heard. So it's not that that something must be written in order to be authoritative. But
in the time when it was an oral tradition, I would argue that there was also a much smaller audience. Srila Prabhupada's reach is many orders of magnitude larger than his predecessors. He reached the whole world. And so I think that the significance of the books is therefore greater. I mean, you could say, yes, it was all spoken back in a time when maybe an acharya, had a much smaller community to speak to. They weren't going all over the world, talking to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of people.
I don't see how the number of people makes any difference. The message.
I'm saying that I think that changes the significance of what is written as being, as I would. What is the word to use? I think, that it has more significance, more authority than, not more authority, but it's most relevant to all people.
But not necessarily.
It seems that Prabhupada intended that. I mean, he said, my books, for 10,000 of years, he said, translate into every language all over the world. I think what Srila Prabhupada's method of delivering his message is different from the acharyas. We can't compare it to previous acharyas. Srila Prabhupada is very different.
We can compare because the message is the same. It's the message that is important. The message is what's significant. The message has not changed. The message has not.
The reach has changed.
The reach is inconsequential, doesn't make a difference. It doesn't change the message. The message remains the same regardless of the reach. Nothing has been added that was not included by previous acharyas. What we have, the written form of Srimad Bhagavatam that we're reading here every day, was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami and spoken by other acharyas in a line of succession. Now it's recorded because we need that. And the size of the audience doesn't make a difference. Are you suggesting that because Srila Prabhupada was directing his words towards a larger audience, that therefore the message in his books is somehow different than the message that was previously spoken?
No. What I'm suggesting, if I may be a bit more straightforward, is that you're making an argument in favor of Agyata Sukriti as like as the effective way to make people fortunate and to spread Krishna consciousness. And I'm saying I don't see that in the books, and you want me to kind of accept that as authoritative based on your anecdotal evidence, and it just doesn't seem to me like that's authoritative. If I can be a bit more straightforward.
Okay.
That's my concern. You can say, well, I heard from Srila Prabhupada, and it just seems to me like if it was really so important, Prabhupada would have put it in his books. Things like dress code, that's another example. If it really is so important, why is it not in the books? This idea of senior devotees, how you become senior just, by the passage of time. If that were really so true, why is it not in the books? We have to like kind of just hear this from devotees, but without evidence in Srila Prabhupada's books, it just seems like maybe it was, if it was said, I don't know because I wasn't there, then if it was said, perhaps it was only relevant to those particular people. If we're talking about details, we're not talking about the principles, of course, the principles have never changed, but details about how Krishna consciousness applied or how it's preached, you're saying the detail is Agyata Sukriti, is how to make people fortunate. I'm saying I don't see the evidence for that in Srila Prabhupada's books, and so it's hard for me to be convinced that it was really important or really Prabhupada's perspective.
Have you done a study of Agyata Sukriti in Srila Prabhupada's books?
I just said that I don't see the evidence, but if there's some passage that I'm missing where Prabhupada's saying pretty clearly that Agyata Sukriti is going to spread Krishna consciousness.
Over 100 mentions of Agyata Sukriti.
Okay, but is there a mention that that's how we spread Krishna consciousness all over the world? Because it hasn't happened. I'm just saying that didn't work.
Well, you don't know it hasn't happened. You don't know it hasn't happened. You don't know the exact chain of cause and effect that has brought various devotees are coming. You don't know the chain of cause and effect that resulted in their coming to Krishna consciousness. And you don't know about the devotees who have yet to come to Krishna consciousness. Because you don't see it happening immediately doesn't mean that the effect is not there. That's a terrible argument. Because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not happening. Agyata Sukriti means that it's unseen.
What's unknown?
Unknown, unseen, it's unknown. So you don't know it. You don't know it, but the fact that you don't know it doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Well, it's unknown by the person doing it. We're supposed to know. If we're supposed to engage someone in Agyata Sukriti, then we should know, right? If I'm telling someone, oh, just touch the book, or, just eat this and not tell them that it's prasadam, then isn't it that we're supposed to know? That's why we're trying to get them to do it. But the person themselves doesn't know.
Fine. So you know, but you don't know how they're being affected. How can you know how they're being affected?
What I do know, Prabhu, is that there's a lot of people suffering, and personally, I don't think that just waiting for some, Agyata Sukriti to magically manifest is the best way for us to alleviate the suffering of people in general. Prabhupada said here, we have the knowledge. That's not
what I'm saying.
We have the knowledge of how to make people fortunate. But if we're just going to justify, well, so many books went out, but they didn't become devotees, so we'll just wait longer. I don't feel like that's effective. And I don't feel like that's really Srila Prabhupada's perspective either.
Really? You
really?
Don't think?
Really, from what I've heard from other devotees, yes. From what I've heard from other devotees, Srila Prabhupada would adjust things to do what's effective, what works. And not just, well, we don't know what's going to happen. Let's just wait and see.
You don't think Srila Prabhupada wanted his books distributed in
I do think he wants the books distributed, absolutely. I distributed some just last week.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying that people cannot be tricked into Krishna consciousness. We have to actually care enough to make it accessible, relevant, and approachable for them. And not just say, well, they're unfortunate. That's why they're not coming to the temple, because they're unfortunate. And Agyata Sukriti is not working.
Okay, I disagree. I see Agyata Sukriti working all the time. I have spoken to innumerable devotees who will say themselves that, I came to Krishna consciousness after this or that, They did something that constituted Agyata Sukriti. One thing led to another, and they became devotees. I see lots of it. If you don't see it, that's your personal experience. I've seen it. You could discount what I have to say. You could discount what I have heard personally from Srila Prabhupada. What can I do? If you don't want to accept.
No, I'd like to see something a bit more explicit from Srila Prabhupada that says Agyata Sukriti is like spreading Krishna consciousness. I just haven't seen such a statement, so I don't have faith in that. I got to be honest.
All right, I will have to make a specific project then of putting together
If you're willing,
a study of Agyata Sukriti for you when I can find the time.
You don't have to.
I'm sorry, I'm not immediately prepared to do that off the top of my head, but I can tell you what I heard from Srila Prabhupada. And if you want to suggest that what Srila Prabhupada had to say somehow, was not relevant or of a lesser degree of authority, I'm telling you how he specifically instructed us and how he engaged us. I think that's extremely significant. He was telling us how to engage in devotional service, how to preach Krishna consciousness, how to engage Krishna consciousness, how to engage people. What could possibly be more relevant? He told us exactly what he wanted us to do.
May I offer something?
Sure.
Even if, and I'm not saying that it did, but even if it worked, Agyata Sukriti worked in the past, I think that if Srila Prabhupada was present among us nowadays, he will change his strategy because it doesn't work anymore.
Well, that's entirely speculative. We can speculate about what Srila Prabhupada, may or may not do. That doesn't have any particular value, with all due respect.
Well, with all due respect, you presenting Agyata Sukriti as evidence without presenting evidence is highly speculative as well. All I'm saying is that we can observe that the mission of Srila Prabhupada has not succeeded to the extent that Prabhupada wanted it to succeed. So if he was, I'm not speculating. I think Prabhupada, based on the way he conducted things, how he changed his policy from the League of Devotees to the beginning of ISKCON, to the later ISKCON, and to much later as well, because he wanted things to work. So Agyata Sukriti, even if that was the method used in the past, it wouldn't be his choice because it doesn't work, not anymore, even if it did. And in the verse preceding the Tadvidi Pranipatina, one has to approach a spiritual master who knows the truth. What is the truth? And the previous verse, you can see that knowledge is more important than ritual or Agyata Sukriti or anything else. That's a previous verse to that verse. So the method is to give knowledge, and in order to give knowledge, one has to sacrifice time, energy, and selfishness in order to convince others about the necessity of Krishna consciousness. That's not Agyata Sukriti. That is the effort and the kindness and the mercy of the devotees. Anyway, I don't have much more to say, so I'll remain quiet now.
I know we're going on so long, but it just seems to me like this whole idea of engaging someone in Agyata Sukriti is the opposite of caring. It's like I don't want to care enough to really try to connect on their level or to see what concerns them or what they're interested in or what they're struggling with.
Could I interrupt you there?
I just want to
Just gotta say, Prabhu,
yeah.
The opposite is true. The opposite is true. Yes, it's possible that someone could have that kind of an idea that, I'm just, they don't care enough, so just Agyata Sukriti. That was never the mindset of Srila Prabhupada's disciples. We didn't operate that way. Because we cared, because we were desperately trying somehow or other to help people who could not otherwise be helped, we took the time and trouble to do whatever possibly could be done. And I got to tell you, it was a lot of trouble to do that. To get someone to actually hold a book, to turn the pages, to look at this and that, to read a few lines, to appreciate, to say something nice, to honor some prasad and express some appreciation for it. To take the time and trouble to engage people that way, that took a lot of work. You had to care enough to be able to do that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I'm not trying to downplay the effort that you and so many of your God brothers and other devotees have done. It just seems to me like care means to also be concerned about what that person is concerned about. And the Agyata Sukriti method is just like, it doesn't matter anything that's going on in your life or your issues or your needs. Just like, you just have to like touch this book or give me some money or something. And like what you're concerned with is not relevant. It seems to me that what people feel care when you care about what's important to them and you meet them on that level. You try to share Krishna consciousness in a way that's relevant to their needs, interests, and concerns. Whereas the Agyata Sukriti method, it just seems to me like it doesn't matter. The suffering conditioned soul, it just doesn't matter. Just take this book. And if you don't take it, you're just unfortunate. I think that care should extend a lot further, such that we make an environment whereby people can hear about Krishna, inquire about Krishna, and in a way that's relevant to what they're concerned with.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, we should do that. But
we're in agreement
that we should make every conceivable effort, including Agyata Sukriti.
Okay.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I mean, it is Sukriti. It's there in the name.
Was Srila Prabhupada a fool?
Good.
And here I have to disagree with Sarvatma Prabhu, who says that Agyata Sukriti is not working. Maybe it worked in the past, but it's not working now. I completely disagree with that. And I don't think that Srila Prabhupada would change his strategy. He felt that distributing prasad was extremely important. The Sunday feast was a fundamental aspect of his preaching effort. And he explained why, that people are not going to understand or appreciate the philosophy. They are dull-headed in this age. They have no capacity. Let them hear the holy names and take prasad. Then they'll understand the philosophy. Then they will naturally become inquisitive. And when they hear the philosophy, it will make sense to them, and otherwise not. It was an extremely important thing to Srila Prabhupada. And you don't have to see it described in the books to know that, that was the system that Srila Prabhupada established. Sunday feast meant kirtan and prasad. People don't have to know, what the sound vibration is that they're hearing. You hear the holy names and it will take effect.
Not as much effect as if they know that it's Krishna.
Fine. If you,
to Krishna.
Yes, of course.
So
if anything done in full knowledge is certainly going to be better. But that doesn't discount the value of doing what you can't do in full knowledge, because you have no knowledge and you have no means of acquiring knowledge. So you have to begin somewhere. So you begin with whatever you're capable of. And then gradually you come to the point of being able to execute devotional service in full knowledge with faith, and then gain an even greater benefit. Of course, that's not the argument here.
I think what yesterday was trying to say is that we stopped at Agyata Sukriti, and that's why things didn't work. Because if it was just that, just make people touch the book or eat something that they didn't know it was prasadam. That's not enough.
It's a start.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not,
No, we shouldn't
necessarily.
we shouldn't give it up. I agree. We shouldn't give it up. It's not that Agyata Sukriti is a thing of the past. It's that things that we took too much, put too much emphasis on it, and we forgot about the rest of the formula.
Okay, that may be. If that's the case, then I'm in agreement. Yeah, in balance, we have to. It's not that we should abandon the business of actually preaching the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, explaining to people what's what. Obviously, that's got to happen somehow at some point or other.
Well, not so obviously. Maybe obvious to you, but I think most of the movement forgot that's it. If they hear the holy name, that's it. That's all they have to do. And so when people come to a Harinam, they see a Harinam with the devotees just dancing wildly and playing exotic instruments and singing something they don't understand. They don't have to understand. They just by hearing it, by seeing it, they will be purified. That's where we stopped. That's what we thought. The public is not important. That what they think, what they see, that's not important. Is the only important thing is that they hear the holy name. They're not hearing it. They think it's a weird thing. They think it's a circus. So how we go about it, explaining, no, this is a millenary process, etc., etc. That's a bridge. Agyata Sukriti is a bridge to knowledge. It's a start, but it's not the end. And it seems like we stopped short of the goal quite a while ago, and by too many people.
Okay, that may be. But simply hearing the holy names, that was Lord Chaitanya's program, just conducting Harinam. He didn't have like a team of preachers following the Harinam program, the Harinam party, to explain the kirtan to the people who had just heard it.
But in that context, everyone
simply
knew the names of Krishna. It was already within the context of, what we now know as Hinduism. People knew the name of Krishna. They knew that they were calling out names of God.
And also, the holy name was sung by inhabitants of the spiritual world. It's a little different from Bhakta Felipe singing the holy names. I don't think the same benefit.
Let me tell you a story. As a young hippie in 1969, I was wandering on the streets of Santa Barbara, California. I stopped at in front of the courthouse downtown on the main drag there. Stopped at the street corner at a traffic light, waiting to cross the street. And as I'm standing there, I hear some sound like bells. Can't figure out what it is. I look across the street and I see this peculiar sight, unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was, of course, a Harinam party. Bahalashva Prabhu had brought a Harinam party to Santa Barbara. And so I see a bunch of, it just looked very colorful, a lot of strange looking people and unusual dress, very colorful. I couldn't even hear what they were singing over the sound of the traffic. I could hear the kartals, and that's all. I couldn't hear the mridungas. I couldn't even hear what words they were singing. Someone next to me said, it was explaining that, this is some process of self-hypnosis. And that was good enough for me. I just thought, this is strange. And, I'm not interested. Within hours, I became desperate for spiritual knowledge. I walked into a bookstore and was glued to the philosophy section, started pulling out every spiritual book I could find. All of a sudden, everything that was even remotely associated with Vedic culture became attractive to me. And I began desperately searching with a desperation that I can't describe. It just, I forgot about my studies. I stopped paying any attention to anything in school, spent all of my time just reading books, trying to understand what was what. And eventually got my hands on Srila Prabhupada's books and met devotees, and one thing led to another. But it started by just hearing the sound of kartals and understanding nothing about anything. The effect on me was profound. It was unbelievable. It completely transformed me in not even overnight, in just a matter of minutes or hours. I was completely transformed just by hearing the kartals. And I'm not alone. And this, this was not some, extraordinarily exalted devotees chanting. These were just, my older god brothers and god sisters, who themselves were brand new to Krishna consciousness. This was 1969. The movement was, only a few years old. These were brand new devotees. Many of them were, in fact, bhaktas. They hadn't even been initiated yet. I did some detective work and tracked down who those devotees were to thank them. And many of these individuals were practically days old in Krishna consciousness. They were brand spanking new devotees. Anyway, just a practical experience.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, maybe what I see here is that Taraka Prabhu, obviously, you're not an ordinary living entity. You must have been accumulating Krishna consciousness in the past, and you
Agata Sukriti is what I accumulated.
Well, I think you were dry enough that a little bit of a striking of a match just set you up on fire. So yeah, there you have it. But most people are not like that.
Yeah, of course, most people are not like that, but that's the effect of Agata Sukriti. And that's what Srila Prabhupada said. And we have that in the books. Take a look at Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 22nd chapter, text 7. The four great sages were elder to Lord Shiva, and when they were seated on the golden throne, they appeared just like fire blazing on an altar. Maharaj Prithu, out of his great gentleness and respect for them, began to speak with great restraint as follows.
Did you say 22:7?
422:7. In the purport, am I in the right place?
Not 422:7.
Maybe I'm in the wrong place. Let me see what I've got here.
It's also Prithu, but he's speaking to the four Kumaras.
I've lost my place here. Yeah, I am in the wrong place. Hold on, bear with me. Oh, gosh.
And then when you're done, Prabhu, I also have a reference in Bhagavatam.
Okay, yeah. So
back up my points.
Yeah, wrong verse. I was reading the wrong verse. That was
It's not 422:7. Must be something else.
Yeah, right. So 422:7. King Prithu spoke, my dear great sages, auspiciousness personified. It is very difficult, even for the mystic yogis, to see you. Indeed, you are very rarely seen. I do not know what kind of pious activity I performed for you to grace me by appearing before me without difficulty. And Srila Prabhupada says in his purport, when something uncommon happens in one's progressive spiritual life, it should be understood to be incurred by Agyata Sukriti, or pious activities beyond one's knowledge. To see personally the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his pure devotee is not an ordinary incident. Even to see his pure devotee is not an ordinary incident. So all of us who got to see Srila Prabhupada, that was not an ordinary incident. And how was that made possible? Srila Prabhupada saying right here, it is by Agyata Sukriti. When such things happen, he says, they should be understood to be caused by previous pious activity as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:28, Yesham Tvanta Gatam Papam Jananam Pumyakarmanam, one who is completely freed from all the resultant actions of sinful activities and who is absorbed only in pious activities can engage in devotional service. Although Maharaj Prithu's life was full of pious activities, he was wondering how his audience with the Kumaras happened. He could not imagine what kind of pious activities he had performed. This is a sign of humility on the part of King Prithu, because whose life was so full of pious activities that even Lord Vishnu came to see him and predicted that the Kumaras would also come. Anyway, it's one mention of Agyata Sukriti, and there are many. But that was my experience. Practical, Agyata Sukriti. Somehow or other, I did something, I don't know what. And so, yes.
You're absolutely right, Prabhu. That's a very good reference. I appreciate that reference. It does lend to your point that Agyata Sukriti can help people to come to that level. Except for the fact that, as I said, we don't see it happening. Maybe it's going to happen decades from now. But in reference to the point that I'm making about not just relying on Agyata Sukriti, but rather adjusting what is necessary so that people can hear and chant about Krishna knowingly. Prabhupada says in the purport to 10th Canto, Chapter 2, text number 31, that after wandering throughout the universe, a fortunate person within this material world seeks shelter of such a guru and acharya who trains the devotee in the suitable ways to render service according to the circumstances, so that the Supreme Personality of Godhead will accept the service. This makes it easier for the candidate to reach the ultimate destination. The acharya's duty, therefore, is to find the means by which devotees may render service according to references from Shastra. And the purport before that, he said, we should make it easy. The process recommended in this verse for cross-mona. If things are made easy, this affords facility for the person who has made them easy and also for others who follow the same principles. Mahat Kritena. So there's Agyata Sukriti, then there's Mahat Kritena. Prabhupada's also suggesting that you can make it easy for people so that they can knowingly do devotional service. Easy. Huh?
Definitely make it easy. Absolutely make it easy. By any means.
I think that's the part where the old school and the new school disagrees, that the old school is not easy for people. And Agyata Sukriti is not enough for them to come to the level of devotional service. We need to make it easier for people.
I'm surprised to hear you say that, because having lived through much of the prior history of ISKCON, I didn't see that. That just was not my experience. I don't know what's going on in the ISKCON world that you're seeing now that is contrasting so sharply with my experience.
What I'm seeing is that there's a tiny minority of non-Indian people coming to ISKCON temples. So it's not easy. It just means that it's not easy for non-Indian people to come to old school ISKCON. We haven't made it easy for them. And Agyata Sukriti is not enough. And here's a purport where Prabhupada's saying we should make it easy. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila Chapter 7, also, Prabhupada says that the Acharya has to find the ways and means by which people can become Krishna conscious. Yeah. And I just don't think that, in larger ISKCON world, we're really trying to do that. I think we're just relying on the old methods and Agyata Sukriti, which is not working for non-Indian people.
The old method was not a sole reliance on Agyata Sukriti. I don't think you should say that, because it's false. That's untrue. The old system was not that we just relied on Agyata Sukriti. Maybe that's happening now, in which case it's the new school approach. It is not the old school. The old school was that we did whatever was required, including Agyata Sukriti, because we stopped at nothing. That's the old school. That was Srila Prabhupada. We tried to emulate Srila Prabhupada. who stopped at nothing. You did everything possible, tirelessly. That was the old school. Now, what you guys are doing now, I will readily admit I'm kind of out of the loop. I've been incapacitated for years. I don't get around a lot. I don't move around a lot. I don't know all of what's going on all over ISKCON. I only hear from God brothers and God sisters what they're experiencing in other places. So you may be seeing things that I don't see, but I do know about what happened in the more distant past when some of you maybe were in diapers or not even. I have lots of experience of that. And I can tell you that it was not a reliance on Agata Sukriti. We did everything possible.
If I may, with all due respect, Tarika Prabhu, because I do respect you and I appreciate your perspective on things and your history, but you say the distant past, the past as if the past itself is authoritative. But before the 70s, you can go to the past of Lord Chaitanya's time where it was done somewhat differently. If you want to go to the past 5,000 years ago, it was done differently from that. Why is the past the authority?
I'm not saying the past is the authority.
So I'm saying just because that's what was done in the 70s doesn't mean that's what we should do now.
Oh my God, how did we get here? What I'm saying, my point was that you are suggesting that something was happening in the past, and I'm telling you that's not what happened in the past. You have a misperception of what happened in the past. That was my only point. I'm not saying
I might have misunderstood you. I apologize.
And as far as adjustments, of course you make adjustments. That should not be an argument. Who's going to argue that you don't adjust things to try to make things easy? At the top of this portion of the discussion, that was precisely what I said. Yes, of course we do that.
Can I suggest a radical adjustment?
Well, you can suggest anything.
Well, I suggest a radical adjustment that in practically all of our temples, we should just be doing puja once a week and just do a lot more kirtan and harinam.
Wow. Well, Srila Prabhupada had a lot to say about that, and he was very insistent that that the program of puja was extremely important and must go on simultaneously. The two must go hand in hand. Like a train travels on two rails. He gave the example. And he gave some Shastric references, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but you would have a very hard time trying to support the idea of reducing any aspect of deity worship in Srila Prabhupada's program. This was also Lord Chaitanya's program, and adjustments, yes, but a change as major as that's not an adjustment. That's a major overhaul, which it just cannot be supported by the example or the words of our previous Acharya. Srila Prabhupada established a particular program of deity worship which cannot be changed. It has to go on. How can you change that? How can you change that?
You just reduce. Not stop doing it. Do less.
You cannot reduce it. You can't. That's an offense. It's a grave offense. Whatever has been established has to be maintained. Very strict rule. Very strict rule. Sometimes it may be that it's impossible for some reason.
I got it.
Then what can you do? You have to, accept the consequences for committing the offense. But otherwise, whatever standard has been established must be maintained. It's a fundamental principle of deity worship.
I got it. I got to go, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Other duties are calling. I just want to say, I really appreciate this conversation. I apologize if some things that I said are offensive. I know that you love Srila Prabhupada, and I hope you see that I also do too. And we're all just trying our best to serve and seeing how we can do that. So please forgive me if I've being a little
not
too cocky.
offensive. I would, however, appreciate if
Come, booger boy.
Srimad Bhagavatam consisted of less opinion and more Srimad Bhagavatam. But I thank you for a stimulating Srimad Bhagavatam class. Hare Krishna.
Thanks everybody who stayed with us the whole time, and Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Nandi. Haribo.
All glories, all glories.